I've been seeing all of your videos on moving to Canada as well. Super great that seeing you're doing that as well. Yeah. Hi there. Thanks for joining the live. Ask any questions. I'm here for the next little bit. Just sharing that we are live now in the group. Let's do this. In the group. We are live. Ask any questions. So what can I help you with today, Tazkia? All right. So it looks like you have applied for your study permit extension February 24th, and it's still pending. So it's been a long while since you applied. Husband has also applied for his work permit extension along with you, and it's also pending. And then let's see. I already graduated and wanted to know what should I do now. So when did you actually graduate? And yeah, let's start with that. When did you finish your studies? While we wait for Taskia to get 15th of August. Awesome. So that's been about a month. You should definitely apply for your post-graduation work permit. We are actually seeing quite a lot of people right now that have had study permit extension applications be really delayed. So, I've been speaking to a lot of people with study permit extension applications that have been stuck since February of this year, just like yourself. And so the first thing you can do is you're still eligible to apply for a post-graduation work permit because you're on maintained status. The important thing you really have to keep in mind right now is that you cannot begin working once you apply for the post-graduation work permit, because you can only do so if you apply while holding a valid study permit. So keep that in mind. So you cannot work. Let's go to the next question. I applied for my study permit extension along with my spouse in April, and I got no decision yet. See, same thing. A lot of people. I I finished my study in August and got my completion letter September 13th. I've stopped working now. I've heard that if I apply for a PGWP now, I can't work unless I get a work permit, which is even longer wait. So I'm waiting for my study permit extension, hoping it will come soon. Is there a way I can make an application process faster, or I get to apply for a PGWP now and work full time? Thank you, highly appreciated. So, Gurung, same thing I said to Taskia. You cannot work after you apply for a post graduation work permit, unfortunately. Let me bring down the camera. Everything's kind of stuck. Awesome. Yeah, so you cannot start working until you receive a decision because you're on maintained status right now. Um, you could wait for your study permit extension, but the fact of matter is that you have finished your studies, right? And so I have been seeing some officers that will come and they just refuse the study permit extension application, saying, "Hey, you're no longer in need of a study permit because you've already graduated." And so, in a situation like that, let's say you're waiting, then your family members, everyone falls out of status. And when that happens, you need to restore your status. Same problem exists, and then another potential problem that's going to come about based on this unreasonable delay in processing is one of the conditions of applying for a post graduation work permit is that you must have held a study permit, a valid study permit, within 180 days of applying, right? And so once you take that into consideration, an assessment the officer is going to need to make is when was the last valid study permit? And if your application is refused, then that date is going to be backdated to February, April, whatever the date was that you applied for your extension, which could actually make you ineligible completely for a post graduation work permit. And so, regardless of if you want to wait or not, my suggestion is apply right now because there's no guarantee your study permit's going to be approved. Mia, Saniza, thanks for joining. Let's see how many people are here. Oh, looks like 25 people joined on Facebook. Vincent's joining on Instagram. Can you show us how to fill out the forms for a PGWP applicant? I'm a single applicant. Maybe one day, but I am not going to be able to do that today. They have guides for it, right? So if you go through the process, they specifically give you a guide on how to fill out each of the questions. If you get stuck, then you can speak to me, but I don't think there's going to be a time anytime soon where I can actually sit down and be like, one, fill in your name. So maybe another day, if you book a consultation or just hire us for our services, that's something we can do for you. Official results came out September 6th. Okay, that next. Will I be able to work if I apply now? Taskia, as I mentioned, you will not be able to work if you apply now. The reason behind that is you're on maintained status. Mabs. Hi there. With the recent announcement regarding PGWP, can you please clarify if spouses of students can still be extended? Thank you. So the recent announcement is not just based on PGWP, but spousal open work permits for a variety of different classes. They haven't given enough information exactly yet. They have mentioned that they are limiting the eligibility for spouses of international students. When they say that, we don't know if it means for spousal open work permits for open work permit holders as well. So we'll need to stay tuned for a little bit more information about what they mean. So nothing specific right now that I can give you. Taskia, yes, that's what I thought. Now I have another problem at hand. If I apply for my spouse's spouse open work permit without a job, then what should I do? So if you have a job offer, you can submit that along with it. But right now, the fact of matter is your husband is still eligible to continue working because he still is under maintained status. He just needs to stop working when the initial application is refused. If it gets refused at all, what I mean. And so he can continue working, and after, if the first application is refused, then he will need to remain unemployed until you receive a decision on the PGWP, which is why it's such a big problem right now with everybody in your situation, having to deal with this because processing timelines are not as long as 7 months for study permit extensions. So I continue following up, contact your MP to try and get an update on your situation if possible. And it's very important that you create a very comprehensive post-graduation work permit application, because if you provide a good enough reason, and a well laid out argument, then the officer has the ability to use his discretion, right? And in the back end, he can make sure that your spouse doesn't fall out of status by, let's say, delaying the decision or just making sure that he processes everything as soon as possible. So, you know, right now it's more important for you to really make sure you have a airtight application to begin with. Nitol, thanks for joining. Hi, I'll be graduating December 15th. My IELTS results are still valid until December 22nd. Now, my question is, can I apply for PGWP with my previous academic IELTS results, or do I need to sit in for another IELTS exam? They haven't released enough information for me to say whether or not they will accept it, so you'll need to come back another time when they actually release the information November 1st. Lester. Let's see. With the recent announcement on PGWP limitations last September 18th, will this impact current students in Canada already and their spouses, since the new policy says from November 1st, 2024 and onwards? Or is this for new study permit applicants only? So let's start with that question. Um, we don't know. It's just way too new. More information is going to be provided probably November 1st. However, based on the decision making process of IRCC that we've been seeing so far, just a month ago, they canceled the public policy allowing for individuals applying for work permits inside Canada as a visitor. They just canceled it abruptly. And so keeping that in mind, and their whole purpose is to reduce the number of temporary residents in Canada down to 5% over the next couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if this new policy is going to impact people like yourself who are already in Canada and studying, as unfortunate as it is. Updating the PGWP program this fall to better align with blah, blah, blah. Okay, you're just pasting. Give me one sec, Taskia. I'm just gonna grab a jacket because it's a little cold. All right, Taskia. Important question. I think I touched on it already. But if your study permit extension is refused, I believe you said you applied for your study permit back in February, right? February until now, let's do a quick date calculation. Let's see. Share screen. Here it is. Time and date, add days. So, time and date calculator. So let's say that you applied February 1st, 2024. Add 180 days, calculate new date. July 30th. So this date has already passed, right? So this is a problem because one of the conditions of applying for a study permit is A, you need to apply within 180 days of you graduating, but that's not the only condition. You must have held a valid study permit during this time. A valid study permit that you held was back in February 1st. And so if that extension application is refused, the only date that you can use is February 1st, meaning you're no longer eligible for a PGWP and your PGWP may be refused. However, just keeping in mind, again, if you create a strong application, there is a chance that the officer may still approve the application using his discretionary authority. Awesome. So next one. Oh, it looks like Diana's joined, Shannon's joined, Eduardo's joined. Everyone joining on Instagram. If you guys have any question, just go to our Facebook page because the comments there is coming up on my screen as opposed to Instagram. All right. Next question. Pooja. I've applied for my PGWP and my daughter's study permit on the 1st of June. I've heard many study permits nowadays are getting rejected. Is that true? How can we avoid it? So your daughter's study permit is a study permit based on your PGWP. And so if you're approved for a post graduation work permit and you haven't made any mistakes on the application, or officers have a significant worry that you're not going to be able to take care of your child in Canada financially, then there's no real reason for you to be worried about this application being refused. But if you have any worries, let me know and we can discuss it. Mia Saniza, I have a job offer, but based on a video I watched on YouTube, he said we don't need to state that we have a job offer since we are applying for an open work permit. Let me just take a look at what your previous thing was. Can you show us how? Okay, no, that's the other one. Okay. I thought you had asked the question that I answered previously, but okay. Um, so the job offer letter or the reference letter, if you're working for an employer, is only required if you're applying for a spouse, to apply for an open work permit together with you. So the condition of a spousal open work permit, if you're applying for a PGWP, is that A, you're eligible for the PGWP, and that you, as the principal applicant, hold a job in a tier 0, 1, 2, or 3 position. There is a public policy in place right now that allows for tier 4 and 5 jobs to work as well. It doesn't need to be full time. It can be part time, but as long as you have a job, you need to upload that as part of the spousal open work permit application in order for your spouse to be issued a work permit. So, just taking a moment here, I've answered about 10 questions so far, I think. My name's Kevin. I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant with Mygration Immigration Inc. We are based in British Columbia, in Burnaby. If you do want to visit our website, it's mygration.ca with a Y. So it's Mygration. Visit us if you have any questions, specific questions that you need consultations for. If you have any doubts about your application, we actually provide services where we review your application as well. Actually, let's take a look. I will show you. Let's take a quick moment and do some sponsorship. So, we're located in BC. As you can see, lots of good reviews, but we offer application review services as well as full rep. So if you guys ever need help where you've actually created an application and you just need us to review it, there's light, standard, and premium packages. All our pricing is available online below. So you can take a look and choose what's best for you. If you want us to take care of the entire thing, it's full representation, all here below. The unique thing about our business is, we have 5-star reviews, about 120 of them so far throughout our years of experience. We really focus on client experience, so we offer 100% money back guarantee. You can actually click this link and see what it means. And we do also want to be one of the most affordable services available. So if you do get quotations from competitors and you want a better price, we beat it by 10%. So keep that in mind, and hopefully, we'll be able to help you someday. Hi, sir. Am I hearing it correctly? Does it mean that after submitting PGWP application, we can no longer work until a decision is made? So, Jenny, that is not 100% true unless you are on maintained status. So what I said that to is for people that have applied to extend their study permit because their study permit was expiring, and then their study permit expired, they're on maintained status, and now they've graduated. If they apply for a PGWP, they cannot work until a decision is reached on the study permit, right? Or until a decision is reached on the post-graduation work permit. But let's say for yourself, you are on a valid study permit, you just graduated, you're applying for post-graduation work permit, then most likely than not, you are eligible to work as long as you have complied with the conditions of your stay in Canada. Aaron, next question is yours. Thank you so much for doing this live. No worries. Happy to do this. Regarding the IRCC announcement, it says limiting work permit eligibility later this year to spouses of foreign workers in management or professional occupations and sectors with labor shortages. Does this apply for spousal open work permit, future post-graduation work permit holders? My PGWP is still in progress, and I recently got a job as a receptionist. My plan is to apply for my husband's open work permit around November when I receive 3 pay slips. Can I still do that after the recent announcement? You can still do it. And they haven't specifically mentioned that it's for spousal open work permits of post-graduation work permit holders, so we still need to wait. There is a longer video, like the video of the announcement is actually about an hour long. I only took a look briefly at it. He did mention specific jobs regarding, the occupations with labor shortages, with specific mentions of the occupations itself, but I haven't had a chance to fully assess everything yet. But for yourself, you don't need to wait for 3 payslips. 3 payslips are not required for the spousal open work permit. All you need is a reference letter. So get that reference letter and apply. Awesome. Let me just take a look at something. There it is. Chat. All right, next question. With the recent announcement, will my spouse get a spousal open work permit as a LPN? Again, not sure with the recent announcement. They haven't mentioned exactly what occupations yet. During the co-op work period, time or study time, shall we go to home country and back enter to Canada without immigration problem? Do we need to show leave approval from college to border service officers when back to Canada during the PGWP application processing time? Shall we go to home country and back to Canada if we have valid? Okay, so 2 questions here. I'm assuming that what you're saying is during the co-op work permit and study permit period where you're studying in Canada, can you go back home and come back without a problem? Yes, as long as you have a valid temporary resident visa or an ETA, you can leave and come back in a valid study permit. You'll be able to re-enter no problem. However, you are asking about showing leave approval from college. Authorized leave is only required if you're taking semesters off, right? So if you are taking semesters off, then you do need to get authorized leave from your school in order to continue to meet the requirements of your study permit. And so just keep that in mind. And during the PGWP application processing time, shall we go home? You can go home while the PGWP is being processed, but like I said, you need a TRV in order to return. If you don't have a TRV, then you should just do an outside of Canada application. Okay. Taskia again. Sorry, forgot to mention, if my study permit extension application is rejected after I apply for my PGWP, what should I do then? If you've gotten rejected after applying for a PGWP, it is still locked in. You're still under maintained status. You cannot work. You just have to wait for the PGWP to be processed. If I receive my student extension during my application of PGWP, can I start working? No, you cannot start working because when you applied, you were on maintained status, unfortunately. I wish that were the case. Okay. All right. However, based on the latest announcement, my spouse and I can still get an extension, right? I currently have a tier 3 part-time position and they are ready to change my status to a full-time upon graduation. However, my course is in business. Christine, were you the one that mentioned the 3? You're waiting for 3? No, that's Aaron. Did Christine say something before that I replied to? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Well, Christine, I don't recognize a previous question that you had, so I don't know if your spouse and you will be able to get an extension. Yeah, like I don't know what your situation is at all right now. Okay, so you're in school studying, so I guess you're just asking if you and your spouse can apply for a PGWP and a spousal open work permit based on current regulations. Yes, as long as you have a job, that's fine. It doesn't need to be full time either. Taskia, should I write a letter to the officer and upload it with my PGWP application? Regarding your study permit extension, yes, I would definitely do so because it really impacts your eligibility for PGWP if they refuse it. And also it impacts your ability to work in Canada. So hopefully it pressures them into making a decision as soon as possible so you can get to working as soon as possible. Hi, my study is going to complete in March 2025, but I want to apply for an LMIA as well before my study completes, and will also apply for a PGWP. What are the repercussions? Is it possible to apply for an LMIA before a PGWP? An LMIA is not an application that you make, Rohit. An LMIA is an application that an employer submits because he has a need in his business to hire a foreign worker who has specific skills that he cannot find in Canada. And so there's nothing barring him from applying for an LMIA, and there's nothing barring him from naming you for the LMIA. It doesn't impact you at all. Once it's approved, you can apply for the LMIA based work permit if it is for the work permit. If it's PR only, then you'll get the 50 additional to 200 additional points added to your Express Entry profile. But that's only if you meet the eligibility requirements of Express Entry to begin with. If not, then you'll need to meet that first. So you can definitely do LMIA and then apply for a PGWP as well. But like the recent announcement said, LMIA applications are going to be more highly scrutinized, and so it may, have higher refusal rates going forward. Pooja, how do you contact your local MP? You find on Google member of parliament in your city, and then you should have their email to contact them. Mathanki, thanks for asking the question. Please explain an unsafe situation when re-entering Canada after going to a home country, for example, study permit. Mathanki, I don't know. If you were, related to a terrorist group, that would be an unsafe situation because you would not be able to come back based on, inadmissibility, right? It's just such a general question. I can't answer this. If you've done nothing illegal and if you're still a student and you still meet all the conditions of your study, work, or whatever permit that you have, and you have a valid temporary resident visa or whatnot, then you are going to be allowed to come back into the country, most likely than not. But at the end of the day, it's the CBSE officer to make that decision. So there's you can't guarantee entry. How much is your service fee for the post-graduation work permit? If you take a look on our website, mygration.ca with a Y, it's mygration, as in the logo that you see on the top right-hand corner, .ca. You'll see that our service fee is $1,200 for the post-graduation work permit service fee. All right, 204 days. Okay. Hello, good afternoon. I started in winter 2024 and I have my open work permit working in Tier 2 jobs. We will apply for a 3-year post-graduation work permit by April 2025. Are we affected for reducing PGWP, or do we have a guaranteed 3-year post-graduation work permit? I think post-graduation work, all the announcements that they made, they are going to be effective immediately. The reason I think so is they're trying to reduce the number of temporary residents over the next 2 years, right? So if they say anyone that's currently studying in Canada are not impacted, then post-graduation work permit holders will not be impacted for the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? Then the policy doesn't make any sense. So I do think that you will be impacted by whatever decision that they come out with in November. And also, PGWP holders are the largest class of of work permit holders in all of Canada, and so it only makes sense for them to target post-graduation work permit holders if they want to target the number of temporary residents in Canada and decrease it. Mabs, another question. Thank you for answering my first question. So, just in case that students can no longer extend their spouses, can you recommend if there's a way for spouses to retain their status, like applying for a work permit? Yeah, of course. So, let's say that these new announcements that take place in November, they end up impacting your family's ability to apply for a spousal open work permit. Then that means that your family member is going to need to find another alternative to being able to remain in Canada, either as one, a visitor. You can change your status to a visitor based on, applying for a visitor record. Two, your partner can go study themselves. And then once they study, they can apply for a post-graduation work permit. Three, they can apply for another work permit. In Canada, there are two different types of, I guess, broad categories of work permits in Canada. One category are called temporary foreign worker program. These are LMIA required. The other is called international mobility program. These are all LMIA exempt. So if you think about post-graduation work permits, spousal open work permits, PMP based work permits, bridging open work permit, NAFTA, ICT, all of these work permits that don't require, including the Francophone mobility work permit, they're all under IMPs, but they all have requirements. PGWP requires you to graduate from a DLI, right? Spousal open work permit for various different programs. Either you're married to a Canadian, you are applying for permanent residency, and you're a spouse of a principal applicant. Stuff like that will make you eligible for a spousal open work permit. There's one specifically for free trade agreement. So if you're from the U.S. or Mexico, certain occupations may allow you to apply for a certain type of work permit. There's ones for Peru, Chile, Korea, Japan, Australia. There's many different types, like so many that you need to go into the LMI exemption list to find them. So if they're eligible for one of those work permits, then an employer, or if it requires an employer, the employer has to, go through the employer job offer, and then pay the compliance fee in order to help out. But no LMI is required. But let's say none of those options are possible, which are the easiest ones. Then you need to go through the LMIA program. The LMIA is basically an application to Service Canada, ESDC, saying, hey, I want to hire this foreign worker because I'm having such a difficult time filling this role in Canada, and it's very important for my business. I'm not paying this foreign national less than what I would pay Canadians, and I am not taking jobs away from Canadians. And so they need to run job advertisements, interviewing people that seem to be Canadians or Canadian permanent residents, and proving to the government that there's no doubt that this job is required but is not being filled. Once they get an approval for the LMIA then can be used to apply for a work permit in Canada, which also helps with gaining some points under express entry, which is why a lot of people are going for it. I've applied for a post-graduation work permit, but in applied status now and I cannot work. What should I do rather than waiting? Vandana, as unfortunate as it is, this is a recurring topic that we're talking about today. Many people are in your situation. IRCC seems to have dropped the ball in processing study permit extension applications. Unfortunately, the only thing you can do is wait. And once you receive an approval, then you can start working. Going back to Pooja, similar to a spousal open work permit, can I apply for a dependent open work permit for my 20-year-old son who is currently in India? How much will be your charges if we get it filed through you? So, Pooja, the dependent work permit is a possibility under the same program that your spouse would be applying for a work permit under. So it is possible. The price is going to depend on the number of applications we take for you. So I don't know if you've already applied for a post graduation work permit and spousal open work permit for your family members, but let me just show you quickly our website. So if you see all open work permits are considered, here, PGWP, spousal open permit, bridging open work permit. So if you are the principal applicant for the PGWP, you'd be paying $1,200, your spouse $600, your dependent child $250. So you can think about that. If you've already applied for your PGWP and we're only applying for your dependent child, it would be $1,200. Pooja, I'm on maintain status with PGWP in process. similar to the spousal open work permit. Can I apply for a dependent? Okay, so I just answered that. Just asking if Nova Scotia still has a PR pathway for occupation and demand, because I do have a job offer as a light duty cleaner and planning to apply through nomination under OID. Thank you. So, Mark, we actually don't do too many Nova Scotia PMPs because we're located in BC. We have done a few, but Nova Scotia is, I'm going to put it, I'm just going to say it bluntly, it's pretty much a shit show there right now. We have done NSPNPs for clients, and you know they're not updating their system, and they are coming up with new changes that impact people who have applied previously. So previous clients of ours have been fully eligible for a program, submitted a full application, and a response that we get is saying, we've received your application, it's complete, we've paid for everything. However, they are not sure when they're going to process the application because they are going to focus on priority occupations. So they're saying there's no guarantee we're ever going to open your application. So basically, no one knows when the application is going to be approved. And so honestly, for us right now, we're not focusing on the NSMP program because the program itself is being run in a way that's not transparent and really impacting the futures of all of our clients right now. How should a reference letter look like? I don't wait for 3 payslips. You mentioned we could submit it as soon as we get a job. Taskia, great question. How should a reference letter look? A reference letter is one of the key reasons that spousal open work permit applications are being refused these days, because the officer has no idea what the job is. And so what I like to follow is providing a little bit more information than what's required. And so I provide a reference letter that's in line with the requirements of a reference letter that's being submitted on an express entry PR application. So if you take a look at the PR application's requirements and instructions, then you're going to be able to see what's exactly required, like, letterhead, their contact information, your job title, job duties, not code if possible, all the benefits, salary, pay, past positions, etc., all of that included, in order to make sure that the officer understands what not code is this. Because at the end of the day, there's, as I mentioned before, the spousal open work permits are under international mobility programs that are LMIA exempt, but there are codes for each labor market exemption. And there's different codes for tier 4 and 5 positions. There's different codes for tier 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 positions. And so the officer needs to choose a program, but if he can't make a determination, refused. And so just do it properly by following the instructions of reference letters for express entry. Then you won't have a problem with it. And yeah, I would just do that. One sec while no water. I've talked a lot. Guys, before I move on, if you are enjoying the content, if you do find this helpful, I would appreciate it if you go to our Facebook page and recommend our page, recommend our service. Let them know that, you are getting, good advice from us. That would be super helpful if you would do that. Let's go to the next one. Capco Evelyn. What is the indication that you are on maintain status of your PGWP application? Maintain status is basically when you apply to change your status or extend your status before your status expires. So the indication is that you've applied and have a confirmation, submission confirmation, receipt, whatever it is on your portal, that you've applied to extend your status before the expiry of your previous status. Say DC, I'm an international student. As of the moment, my job is a part-time nanny. My boss will hire me as a full-time baker after I graduate. Is that okay if I will submit my employment letter even though I will only submit job offer that I have not yet started? I will only start once in full-time, which is after my study. I'm assuming not enough information. I'm assuming you were talking about this job offer in relation to a spousal open work permit that you need to submit for your partner. If that's the case, then um, it depends. I mean, you would submit the job offer, and yeah, you should begin working because having like working for an employer is the requirement. So if you end up submitting the job offer letter, I would submit a web form afterwards, just confirming with a reference letter that you've started work already. And if you have pay slips at that time, you can submit it. If you don't, then you don't need to. Rocio Luna. One sec. I have one part-time period on my master's. First year started on the half of the year. Could I still get the PGWP? So, Rocio, unfortunately, if you studied part-time for any semesters except for your last one, it does technically mean that you no longer meet the qualifications of a post-graduation work permit. Having said that, officers have been, using their discretion in the past to provide positive decisions, even if you're ineligible. And so it is something that we do see quite frequently. There's just no guarantee that it's going to be approved. But we do see it all the time, and so it's still worth an application and seeing if they're willing to provide a positive decision. There's a number of arguments that you can make based on your personal situation and the circumstances around the part-time semester that increase the likelihood that the officer is going to consider using their discretion. If you do need help regarding this is considered a complex case, then reach out to us and we'll do our best to see if we can help. Hey, Jamoke, I remember you from last time. Thanks for joining again. What is this new 2-year PGWP extension? Can we benefit from it if we have already applied for May 2024? I don't know. Has there been a new 2-year PGWP extension that's been announced? I don't believe so. 2-year PGWP extension. Let's see. Oh, let me share my screen. What am I looking at? Is this true? How come I've never heard of it? It's been almost 3 weeks. Okay, what does this immigration consultant say? Now, thanks to the new work permit extension policy, some intern. Hey, if any of you have specific links to the government website regarding this extension that Jamoke is talking about, please share it in the comment section because I have never heard of this before. So let's see what they are talking about. So this is just a sales post. This is another sales post. Oh my goodness. This is such a This is clickbait. It's clickbait. They just need a support letter from a province or territory. It's not PGWP extensions per se. So the government came out and the federal government gave every province and territory the power to provide support letters to extend the work permits of certain individuals who are inside the provincial nomination like pool system in each of the provinces or whatnot. Details haven't been announced for all the provinces and territories. Only certain ones have used it so far, and so it's not a PGWP extension. It's just an open work permit that might be possible. No details yet. Jamoke, I wouldn't bet on it for now. I do believe it is likely going to be targeted at certain occupations in high priority sectors, and so health, construction, maybe STEM, places like that. maybe, if you're in the pool for it. But we'll have to see, because it is going to be rolled out, and the power has been given to the provincial governments and the territories to make the decision. Oh my goodness! I was like, what is this? What is this new thing? Interesting, but it's not. It is totally clickbait that they're calling this PGWP extension. Okay. I'm applying for a PGWP application with dependents, open work permit for spouse, study permit for minor, and a temporary resident visa. Um, okay. What do you mean by reference instead of submitting three payslips? Should I get the reference from the employer? Louise, so what I mean is if you're already working for the employer, a job offer letter gives you an offer asking you to start at a certain date. Reference letters state that you've been working for them, right? I believe a lot of people call it what is it, confirmation certificate of employment. From some cultures and some countries call it that, but in Canada it's just called a reference letter. So that's what I'm talking about. If you're already working for them, you should get a reference letter because it proves you're working for the employer. It's a much stronger piece of evidence than a job offer letter, of which the IRCC officer has no idea if you've started work, are starting work, or not. Oh, it's getting hot again. Let's stand up. All right. Rocio Luna, will other degree graduates not on demand get the PGWP? Any news on this? No specific news on this yet. Lester, to reconfirm, we are already waiting for a PGWP application, so it means me and my spouse cannot work until we receive the results. Applied since April and pending results. Lester, it's only if you applied while you were on maintained status. Let me share my screen again, show you exactly what. So I think it's confusing people because people are joining later or earlier than others. Can I work after applying for PGWP? So this is, let me share my screen. This is the Canadian government website. There's requirements to be able to work after submitting a PGWP application. And it's that at the time of your PGWP application, you have held a valid study permit. You have completed your program of study. You are eligible to work off campus without a permit, and you did not work off campus for more than 20 hours a week during academic sessions. This one, you don't need to worry about if you're working more than 20 hours based on a public policy. But this is the key thing. You need to have held a valid study permit. So if you had a valid study permit when you applied, you can work. However, when I mentioned that you cannot, is people that had applied to extend their study permit, a decision was never reached, so they're on maintained status, and then they apply for a PGWP. Those people cannot work. Hope I made that clear. Next one, Gabby Maldonado. Anyone joining from Instagram? Nope. Hi, I am studying my last term in marketing at Mount Royal University in Alberta, finishing it in December 2024. Due to the last announcement, is it possible that my program is not eligible for a PGWP? If my husband is working on construction and their company can extend him, an LMIA would recommend us to go with that option. So, like I said, not all the details have been released yet. However, for your spouse, if you are finishing it in December 2024, your spouse may be impacted as well. And so, due to those reasons of the spousal open work permit being impacted, there's not 100% certainty of what's going to happen yet, but it's not a bad idea to go forward with an LMIA. Just keep in mind that an LMIA application right now has very, very long processing times. And so, if you take a look at my screen again that I'm sharing, LMIA processing, it is 97 business days for PR stream, 53 for low wage, 51 for high wage. And these are business days. And so, keeping that in mind, even if you start the LMI application now, it requires 1 month of advertising. So, there is 1 month gone. And then on top of that, 50 to 100 almost business days. So, you're looking at a processing time of even being able to apply for something spanning, a few months to, half a year almost. So just keep that in mind. If you do need to go forward with an LMIA, best option is to get started as soon as possible. What they used to do before was you would apply for the LMIA and apply for an extension of the work permit, and the government was more or less willing to wait, even though a decision wasn't reached, because they knew that an application had been submitted. But things have changed this year where they have begun refusing all of those applications that are put, as a placeholder, saying, hey, we've applied for it, let's just keep them under maintained status so they can keep working. This is no longer working. They're refusing all of these. Thank you. My spouse is here, but I didn't apply for him when I applied for my PGWP. What should we do for him? If you have a job and you're working, then you should still apply for him now. And they should process it. The only thing to keep in mind when an application is sent in separately, sometimes for some reason the spousal open work permit gets processed faster in some cases, but a spousal open work permit cannot be approved unless the PGWP is approved. So in cases like these, we have seen the officer coming back and refusing it sometimes. But again, once you get the PGWP, you can apply again. And so it's not really that big of a problem, but something really to keep in mind before you submit. Lauren, I haven't received my work permit extension letter for post-graduation work permit. Submitted my application for PGWP last August and started working full-time. Am I allowed to work without it? Can I submit the letter I received from IRCC to my employer? You don't need to submit anything to your employer. You can start working as long as you meet the requirements. We just went over the requirements like a few minutes ago. So if you were there for that, you'll know that you are eligible. Paris Hillary, hi, good afternoon. My spouse and I are waiting for the decision of our extension of our visa, which was filed May before a permit expired July. My spouse was granted upon filing of the extension of implied status until October 31st, 2024. There's no decision yet. What if after October 31st there's no decision? Could my spouse still continuously work? As long as they're under maintained status and they had eligibility to work, you can work until a decision's reached. Rocio, does working in another province discount you points for PMP specific to Manitoba? No. Thank you so much for helpful answers. I'll recommend your page. Thank you. Thank you. Janice, okay, let's just see how many questions there are. There's quite a few questions. I've been doing this for about 50 minutes now. I am going to do 5 more minutes and then I am going to call it. Getting a little tired now and should focus on some other work that I need to get done as well. Okay, so let's do this. Janice Aguilar. I'm currently awaiting the results of my study permit extension and would like to apply for my post-graduation work permit. However, I also need to apply for an open work permit for my spouse and study permits for my minor dependent. Could you please advise if it is more efficient or advisable to apply for the PGWP first and then submit applications for my dependents afterwards, or should I apply for all permits at the same time? So, considering your situation, what people apply separately for one reason is that it's usually processed faster if you do a PGWP application on its own. And so they're hoping, let's get it fast and then let's extend my spouse and dependent children at the same time. Another thing you can do is you could leave your spouse out, but then apply together for the study permits of your children because there's no requirement for you to have a job. If you have a job, then just apply all together, right? But again, the speed is the factor. If you feel like you need to get the decision as soon as possible, then maybe it does make sense to do it on its own. But there's no specific statistic of what is better. It's all a risk at the end of the day. It's just a decision that you need to make. Sometimes applying as a family, you'll get a decision really quick, like within a month. Sometimes you apply with a family and then it takes several months, which means you're not going to be able to work for those several months because you're currently under maintained status, right? And so those are things to keep in mind. But yeah, no right or wrong answer here. Sorry, can't give you, the best option. Hi, my study permit expired in July, and I've applied for my permit extension in June. My course completed August. Can I apply for PGWP while on maintained status? Yes, Ivy, you can apply while you're on maintained status, but you cannot work until you receive a decision on the PGWP and have it approved. Louise, I have a co-op for a month in this company and with pay. Can I use the pay slips for PGWP app with dependents? As long as the job is extended, yes. And also, if I have previous job that I just recently resigned, can I still use a letter of employment and 3 pay slips for that job too? You only need one job, but technically, yes, if you've resigned. But I wouldn't upload the 3 previous pay slips dated I don't know how many months ago. I would just use the reference letter or a job offer letter stating a specific date of start. Yeah, so that's that. But don't use the co-op if that's not being extended. Use the job that's being extended. The requirement is that you're working in the job even during the processing and until the decision is made. Abby Jane, should I apply for a visitor record? My study permit will be expiring October 1st. My school did not release their letter of completion. That's why I cannot apply for a PGWP. Abby, you should reach out to your school to figure out when they're going to give you the letter of completion because most schools do have dates at which they send the letter of completion. The best case scenario is that you get that before October and then you apply for the PGWP. If not, yes, you can apply for a visitor record. You can apply for a study permit extension. However, you won't be able to begin working until a decision's reached on the PGWP. Whereas if you apply before your study permit expires, then you can continue working while the application is being processed. I'm an open work permit holder and my spouse already applied for a PGWP but not yet approved. Can I add my extension or do I need to wait until the PGWP is approved? You can, I mentioned this briefly before, you can apply sometimes if the officer gets to your application before the PGWP for whatever reason, let's say hers is complicated, then they might refuse your application because the requirement is that the PGWP needs to be approved first. Hello, Mark from Facebook. Thanks for answering my first question. I have a question again because currently I'm working under a temporary foreign worker program here in Canada and it's still possible for us to study again for 6 months. You can't study on a work permit. You need a study permit. And so you need to apply at a DLI and then apply for a study permit. Is IT network admin part of the in-demand occupations in Canada? I'm assuming this is in relation to the announcements that's been made. We don't know. I'm catching up on all the questions. My spouse is still on applied status as it's when I applied for my study extension. What should we do? Is he eligible to work until a decision is made? Let me read this again. My spouse is still on maintained status as it is when I applied for my study permit extension. What should I do? Is he eligible to work until? Yeah. So Vandana, he or she is allowed to work until a decision is reached on that open work permit extension application. So even if that takes a year, he's still eligible to work. Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Marku. And then Jumoke, when you apply for a PGWP extension or when your authority to work after PGWP application has expired, a decision is made, are you still allowed to work? Yeah, so maintained status is in the Canadian immigration law, the WPEXT letter that you get. It doesn't mean anything. It has an end date, but it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to work afterwards, so you can continue working. This is the last question that I'm taking, guys, and then I'm gonna head out. Angel, hi there. I got my completion letter today. I'm just concerned with my pay stub that I received yesterday. It shows on my pay stub I worked 42 hours instead of 40 hours. I'm planning to lodge my application tomorrow. Single applicant. So I'm not sure what the question is. I'm assuming that you're saying that you're eligible to work 40 hours a week. But 40 hours is full time. Full time means anything above 30 hours. So if you're eligible to work full time, 42 is not a problem. But if you're saying that you are supposed to work part time, which is 20 hours per week, but the pay slip is a bi weekly period and it's showing 42 hours, and you work 2.5 hours over, then obviously that is a problem. You are non-compliant with the conditions of your stay in Canada because you worked overtime. Now you would be ineligible based on the policies and operational guidelines of IRCC. But again, it's such a small mistake. I would, definitely mention it to the officer, disclose it up front, and hope that they use their discretion to provide a positive decision. There's no guarantee, but it happens all the time. Officers are lenient with cases like this, but there's no guarantee. So, it's too bad. If you did indeed only work 40 hours, talk to your employer, get that amended. So I am no longer taking any questions. Thank you so much for joining, guys. I just want to say, if you have any questions, if you need to speak with me specifically, I am going to continue to be available to speak to in consultations. You can visit me at mygration.ca. As well as pgwpcanada.ca, pgwpcanada.com. They're both my websites. Let's see, how do I edit this? Yeah, so here, you can take a look. Mygration.ca or pgwpcanada.ca at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. pgwpcanada.com, what it does is I've created a tool that automatically assesses your eligibility for the post-graduation work permit. So you'll have to answer a bunch of questions, and it'll send you a PDF report at the end of it to your email. So it tells you exactly what the requirements are, if you meet it or not. And so take a look at that. It's pretty helpful. And then mygration.ca, that's the consulting business that we run. If you need any help in professional representation, if you need consultations, if you need us to look over the applications that you've made, that's something you can use. And there is a special promo that I am providing right now. For PGWP clients for full representation, what we are doing is we're actually also providing a PR pathway consultation at the end of the application. So you know what actionable next steps you need to take in order to secure permanent residency in Canada. Too many people reach out to me too late with, a month left on their work permit. What can I do? How can I stay in Canada? Don't let that happen to you by making sure you have a plan in place. If you guys are really considering working with a professional, just make sure that the immigration consultants that you work with are authorized. So, the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants of Canada or the regulatory body. Make sure you're registered, and just make sure you're not being defrauded by a lot of scammers out there. Secondly, just wanted to show you that we do have a money back guarantee for satisfaction related problems. We have a 10% price beat guarantee. So if you guys have any sort of, concerns related to, what we hear from a lot of people before, well, I used to own another company before. We interviewed hundreds of immigrants regarding their experience with consultants and lawyers. And one of the biggest thing was you sign the agreement with them and then they disappear. You're no longer talking to the RCIC. The admin people will come and you never see them ever again. They don't reply to emails, etc. We have this money back guarantee set in place so that you know for a fact that when you do work with us, you are our top priority as our full representation client. So you'll be working with me directly or my wife, who's also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. All the admin are not customer facing. We're always facing you and working with you directly, and we reply to your inquiries as soon as possible. Price beat guarantee is basically, we also want to be one of the most affordable service providers in Canada. And so if you can find somebody that offers a similar scope of service and also owns a business, they're not based out of their basement garage or something, or doing this part-time or whatever, and they actually have a consulting business, we'll beat their price by 10%, and so with confidence moving forward with our firm. If you guys do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me directly on my website. There's a contact form and everything. Thank you so much for joining today, and we'll talk to you in the next stream, maybe we'll talk